Hi friends, and welcome back. Today we're working on the 12th Sunday dinner. Here's what's on the menu today. We don't have a starter, so we're starting right in with the main meal, which is roast beef with brown gravy. On the side, we'll have browned potatoes with creamed onions. The salad for today is a coleslaw with nuts. Also on the menu is Boston brown bread and orange marmalade. And for dessert, we're having Prune Whip with a custard sauce. As always, there's coffee. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. My name is Ashley and I'm a registered dietitian. I love everything vintage and food. Those two things are combined here with this project. If you'd like to know a little bit more about the purpose of this project and what exactly we're trying to do, refer back to week 1, where I go over a little bit more about what the whole point of this is. And if you'd like to watch and see how we remake these recipes, join us in the kitchen. The last time we made coleslaw, we used a box grater to shred it, and many of you pointed out that they would have been chopping it with a knife or cutting it with a knife and cutting it just as thin as possible into strips or shreds with that knife. So we're going to try it that way today. We're just going to use a knife and get it as thin as possible while keeping our sanity. This is definitely not the dressing that I associate with coleslaw, whipped cream. I know we've added more savory type spices. We're adding this green pepper in here and vinegar, but looking at it, it just strikes me as something that's going on a dessert, or definitely not on vegetables. Just very different than what I have become accustomed to. So as I'm draining the water off of this cabbage, I'm realizing that I read it wrong or was thinking wrong. It says to soak it in cold water. Well, I saw that and I heard ice water. So I put ice in water and soaked these shreds in there along with it. The problem is when I'm draining it, I am draining the water. However, all these little ice cubes are still in there and they aren't draining. So I'm gonna have to go through and pick through all of this and get the ice out. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to wait, I don't know how much longer, to make sure all of it actually melts. Oh, remember how important it is to read directions thoroughly? My solution is going to be, I have a towel down on the countertop here, and I'm just going to pick out the cabbage and put it onto the towel and take the ice cubes and throw them in my prep sink. Idiot. I feel like I said this the last time that we made coleslaw as well, but I'm going to say it again. It seems like the ratio of dressing to cabbage is off here. I feel like there's not enough of this whipped dressing to go on all of this cabbage, but I was wrong last time. Maybe I'll be wrong this time. It's been going for quite a while and it's not really getting super thick. I don't know if it's supposed to be thicker than this. As a custard, it seems like it should be thicker than this, but I guess it's a custard sauce, so maybe not. I guess I'll let it go just a little while longer and hopefully maybe it thickens up just a little more. This really just isn't thickening up, and so I guess that's either how it's supposed to be or it's just the recipe. So we're just gonna add these egg whites in. And can I also say about this recipe, I know that you're supposed to read everything thoroughly the whole way through the first time. I get it, I know. And this is why. This recipe is a good example. It says at the very end, take from the fire and beat in the stiffly beaten egg whites. What stiffly beaten egg whites? At no point until right now did it tell us to beat those egg whites stiffly. So if I had just been going through and reading it, I may have just put the other egg whites aside and not use them or use them for a different recipe. I'm very grateful for the way that recipes are written today. I know this doesn't look delicious, but I also know it's going to taste amazing. The recipe says that orange goes well with the prunes, so we'll go ahead and use the orange extract to flavor this. It is most definitely thin like a sauce, not thick like a custard. Now, it doesn't say to cut the core or the top off, but I can't imagine wanting to eat this or this part, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut those off. I'm just going to assume that they would assume that we would know to do this. I have a little bit of suet melting as I'm heating that pan up for this roast. This is a chuck roast, I believe. And to our flour, I believe it says to add salt and pepper, but as we've discussed before, home cooks at the time would have seasoned how they preferred as well, and many of them might have known to season additionally what was listed. So I've added some onion, some garlic, some celery, a few other things in here along with the salt and pepper to the flour, just to season this roast up a little bit. I believe this is a 2.5 pound roast. I don't know that I believe that 15 minutes is sufficient per pound. That would mean we really only needed to roast this for like 45 minutes. I'll check it. I just feel like that probably isn't long enough, but I have been wrong many times before. only says to pare and then boil these potatoes, but I think I'm going to cut them into smaller pieces, maybe in half, in thirds, or in quarters, in like maybe this one in half and this one in quarters or thirds. I think that'll just make it easier for serving. It'll probably cook it quicker, and I think maybe just look better too. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. All right, friends, we are ready to try all of this food out. We don't have a starter this time, so we're getting straight into the main menu. Now, I will say, looking at this plate and our salad and our dessert later, my first impression is that there isn't a lot of color going on here. Although I do prefer my reds and greens and oranges and, you know, whatnot, sometimes delicious meals are beige. So let's put a little bit of this gravy on. Now, the menu called for brown gravy, but our recipe did not. So I guess all the previous menus that we've seen, at least in my recollection, in the actual recipe for the main dish for the meat, it always says something about making the gravy or serving it with the gravy. And I believe, unless I read it wrong or I'm forgetting, I don't believe it said anything about the gravy in this roast beef recipe. But maybe I'm going to go back and look at it and say, what the heck was I talking about? It was right there the whole time. Maybe I forgot, but either way, let's get right into this and try it out. It smells very nice. It smells beefy, and I can smell the pepper a good bit. I think I used black and white pepper for this. That is really yummy. The texture is good. It's not well done. I'd say it's at a medium. I think the texture is very nice. The flavor is really good. I think adding those extra seasonings to it was the right move for this, and I think it's going to go very well with our potatoes and onions. And I think last week, what kind of potatoes did we have last week? I think we had sweet potatoes for last week's dinner, but there's usually some kind of potato. It always tastes basically like a potato. No different this time. It's very good. Goes very well with the gravy and the beef, but it's just a plain old potato. I think it's more of a vehicle for whatever else you're eating it with. Now, what I'm very excited about are these onions. I think when an onion is kind of cooked down like this, I could eat like a whole bag of them. I'm gonna end up getting myself in big trouble if I like these too much, because I'm gonna want to eat every single one. And I'm sure that the smell of my sweat and my pores will just be seeping out. Terrible onion smell. It won't be good. So I'm going to have to control myself a little bit. Someday, maybe on a live or something, I'll have to tell you about our college experience with garlic. It was quite Funny for me, not so funny for the people around me. That smells wonderfully like an onion. You know, you could tell there's a difference between the smell of raw onion, cooked onion, and I don't know that there is a better smell than onion sauteing in butter. If we could get that in a candle, that would be fantastic. Although I suppose it would be a lot cheaper and the end product would be much better if you just sauteed these onions in butter for the smell if you wanted it. But let's taste these. That is delicious. It just kind of starts to melt in your mouth as soon as it hits your tongue. It's got that nice sweet onion flavor. And I think all I used was yellow onions. I didn't use Vidalia or anything like that. Just a regular yellow cooking onion. And it's just, the sugars in there are coming through and it's just melting. And at the same time, that cream sauce is a little bit salty and thicker. Oh, this is working so well together. If you're looking for a side dish to kind of elevate your dinner and you're not sure what to do and you're doing it on a budget, these creamed onions, definitely a win. We're at the salad course, and looking at the recipe, I'm not sure if we were supposed to actually mix the dressing in or if it was supposed to be kind of like a more traditional salad where the cabbage shreds were on the bottom and then we put some of the dressing on top and then sprinkled the walnuts on. But that doesn't make sense to me exactly, because it said that if there was water, any liquid left on the cabbage, that it would dilute the dressing. So I'm thinking we were supposed to mix it in, but what are your thoughts? It smells good. I smell a mixture of everything in here. I can smell the cabbage. It smells pretty cruciferous. I smell the walnuts, and I can smell the vinegar in the dressing. And I do believe I mentioned earlier, but I can't remember exactly, this is not the type of dressing that I associate with coleslaw. And I guess it didn't say coleslaw, it says cold slaw. I don't know what the difference is, but let's give this one a try. It's different. It's not bad. It's not exactly good, I guess. The flavors for me just don't mesh well together. That dressing doesn't go with this to me. Maybe that's why it's kind of gone by the wayside, at least as far as I'm aware. I've never heard of anything like this before. Maybe there's a reason for that. The texture of the sauce is too thick and almost a little dry. It isn't exceptionally dry. It's just there isn't enough sauce or enough liquid in the sauce for it to coat this the way you want it to. The coating is not, it just doesn't, it's missing something. It just doesn't work for me. Have any of you tried something like this before? What are your thoughts? Now, you may have noticed already that although the Boston brown bread is on the menu, that we didn't make any, and it's not in front of me on this table. That's because when I went to go gather the ingredients for this, I had run out of rye flour. And when I went to go grocery shopping, the town that I was in, those grocery stores did not have rye flour at the time, and we've run out of time to order it. So what I'd like to do actually is to try the canned Boston brown bread, and I'm going to order some. Hopefully we'll have it in the next few weeks, and we'll just do like a little separate mini video, a try it video with that, and some orange marmalade, because I do happen to have that, but it's not helping us in this situation right now. So we'll skip over that, and hopefully we'll get our hands on some of the canned Boston brown bread soon enough. So in the meantime, let's try this Prune Whip. And again, it's kind of on theme for the color of the rest of this menu. A little bit brown, tan, beige, very earth tones. I smell the orange extract very strong. I have high hopes for this. It feels, just putting my spoon in and lifting, it feels nice and light and smooth. Want to check it out? It actually, you maybe don't want to check it out. It doesn't look very appetizing. That is so yummy. The sauce does go very nicely with it. And based on how I'm eating it now, I know that I had said earlier custard sauce. I was thinking custard thicker, and I know we've talked about this a little bit before. It definitely was not supposed to be a pudding custard. It should, I think, the way it's working with this, certainly have been this thinner sauce, because it's already, the prune is very light, airy, smooth. If you would have had like a puddingy custard on top, it would have weighed it down too much. This sauce is the perfect texture, the perfect thinness for it. Yeah, that is delicious. I also took your advice, and you guys had said don't beat the prunes into some of these things, like the cake. That prune cake, it would have been better if I hadn't beat the prunes in, but maybe had mixed it with a spoon or a scraper instead. And that's why I chose to do it this way with this, because there's a little more texture. You can feel the texture of those plums. Well, yeah, they are plums. Prunes a little bit better. Yeah, this is fabulous. The texture of this leads me into my overall thoughts on this menu. And I really like how light and fluffy that dessert is compared to the rest of this menu. We started off with meat and potatoes with gravy, and then creamed onions. That's a pretty heavy, hearty, hefty, sit in your belly, fill it up. Very, what I would say is a kind of a warm winter meal. I would actually kind of see this being more in February than I do in March. After having that, our salad was a little, it was crunchier with that raw cabbage in there, but the dressing for it was not light and bright and refreshing. It was a heavier dressing also, and with the walnuts on top, I think the salad was kind of in the middle of that. So it was a little bit lighter with the raw cabbage, but also a little heavier with the dressing and the walnuts. And if we would have had the Boston brown bread, that is pretty dense, heavy bread. The orange marmalade would have, I think, counterbalanced that nicely and brightened it up a little bit, but this is a very good balance to that meal. If we would have had something heavier, I think it would have maybe just been a little bit too much. I think this is the perfect way to end the meal on a nice sweet note, but nothing that's overpowering. Just a really nice way to balance that out. Nutrition-wise, I think I'm kind of in the same realm of thinking as I am generally overall. This meal's a little bit heavier than what I prefer, but we do have the onions in there, although they are in a cream sauce, and we do have the raw cabbage, which also is in a cream sauce. We started it out with a nice kind of heavier protein with that beef and potatoes with that, the gravy on top. I'd say this is, from a nutrition standpoint, this is probably maybe mid-level for me, although we're, depending on where in the country you're at, they may have been kind of running out of options on what they could serve at this point. Here in Pennsylvania, we're not even able to start planting most crops yet. We're still a month or two away from being able to get crops in the ground right now. So if these people are up north, they're still looking at a little while before they're going to see a lot of things that are fresh that they can grow in their own gardens. Budget-wise, this one wasn't terrible. I'm guessing for 6 people, if we would have bumped this out for 6 people, you're looking at somewhere between maybe $55 to $70. If you liked what you saw today, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel so that you never miss another dinner. Join us next week where we make cottage pudding with a lemon sauce. We are going on a trip. Nani and I and some other people are taking a 2-week trip, and I am trying to pick out what I want to wear on this trip.